and welcome to the next keynote. We're just rushing through in the sustainability track today. Our next keynote speaker isn't just a highly profiled thought leader on sustainability, but also from Copenhagen Fintech's close partner and friend, Citi. We're also actually running a program together with Citi, DBS, and UNDP, so you can check out more on that. We will hear more about how and if sustainability is a necessity today in the future, and can organizations and financial institutions survive without actually focusing on sustainability. Our keynote speaker is Citi's Global Chief of Sustainability Officer, Val Smith. Warm welcome to you, Val.
Thank you very much for having me. Let me check to make sure you can hear me okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of feedback, but if you can hear me okay, I'll go ahead and proceed.
We will try to fix the sound. We can hear you. It's a little bit wobbly, but we'll try to fix it.
Okay. Bear with me just one moment. Let me see if I can fix this. You'll give me just one more moment. Thank you for your patience.
We hear you perfectly now.
You can hear me perfectly?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll go ahead and get started then.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you so much. A big welcome, and I'll hand over the stage to you, Val.
Oh, thank you. So just so you know, thank you. Great. Well, thank you very much for having me today. I wish I could be in Copenhagen to join you in person. I'm glad to be here with you virtually. It's great to see that the theme for Copenhagen Fintech Week is shaping a sustainable future. It really feels more urgent now than ever as we embark on this UN decade of climate action, with both climate change and COVID-19 really shaping our global development. And the conference is taking place at the same time as the UN General Assembly, which is meeting virtually right now. The Secretary General is convening a Sustainable Development Goals Moment virtual event and a high-level meeting on financing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in the era of COVID-19 and beyond, as well as a leaders event on climate change. And I think it's become obvious that the financial and technology ecosystems have a crucial role in advancing the global goals and in building a new and more sustainable world, something that you've highlighted and discussed throughout this conference. Financial services and technology, or FinTech, as we're now calling it, are playing a major role in the many different relief packages being implemented globally, and I think will continue to do so in the recovery phase. And this pandemic has made it quite obvious that we have to think from a macro perspective about our global development goals and about inclusive capitalism, which will be essential to achieving those. So when I learned for this session that I was being asked to address the question, is sustainability a global necessity? I thought, is this a trick question? I've spent my entire career focused on sustainability, including 16 years at Citi, so I am a true believer. Of course, I believe that sustainability is a global necessity. But then I took a step back to try to analyze this question a little bit more objectively. When I started at Citi in 2004, about 16 years ago, most of my colleagues didn't really understand what sustainability was. People viewed my job as about making the environmental activists go away. But today, sustainability has become a C-suite strategy and business conversation. All of our bankers want to understand how to talk with their clients about sustainability and ESG, and not just the green bond bankers. The mining bankers, the oil and gas bankers are all thinking about how they can help their clients to transition to a more sustainable world, to net zero. So we're at a moment where we have so many challenges. And in these times, I think it's helpful to look back at our history for guidance. Did Kodak realize that we were at an inflection point in photography? Did Encyclopedia Britannica realize that people would come to consume information so differently and so much of it? Take electric cars. It might not feel, especially in some parts of the United States, like we're shifting away from the internal combustion engine. But it already feels like we have passed that tipping point in many countries around the world, including in the Nordics. One analyst last week estimated that the electric vehicle business of General Motors could be worth more than the rest of the company. I think that on sustainability and on climate change, it doesn't feel like it quite yet, but we are at an inflection point. And there are three key indicators. The first is that our investors and our clients are pushing companies to become more sustainable. 20 years ago, we used to have a small group of socially responsible and religious investors who came to talk with Citi about once a year to talk about our environmental and human rights performance. They were really ahead of their time. And a few years ago, we started doing a fall ESG investor roadshow where we engaged with our major institutional investors on climate change and diversity. And even now, that fall roadshow feels like a year-round event. And we have clients who are scoring us on our ESG performance, and they're setting up meetings to talk about what we need to do to improve. The second indicator is that our employees care deeply about sustainability, and that is part of our war for talent now. They're not shy about telling us if we get it wrong. Employees are informed, they want to know that they're working for a company that is sustainable, and they believe that if the company is not acting responsibly, they will create activist campaigns, they'll work with inside the company, and we saw this with some of the largest technology companies last year. I think the third indicator, and one that is very much relevant to the event that we're at today, is around the increasing emphasis on metrics and measurement. Technology is really giving us the tools to measure, to track greenhouse gas emissions across all actors of our global economy, and there's a virtuous circle being created. Investors and regulators are asking for this data, which prompts banks to ask their clients for this data and companies to ask their suppliers for this data. And once this data is disclosed, we will see that result in increasing pressure to improve performance. And so I'd like to share just a little bit about how Citi is adapting to this new reality. On slide 2, if you could move to slide 2, please, you'll see a snapshot of Citi's sustainability journey. Within our 208 years as a company, we've only been focused on sustainability for about the last 20 years. But I think that what we've learned during those 20 years, the successes, the failures, has helped to prepare us, has helped to prepare our ability to work with our clients for the challenges that we have ahead. So next slide, slide 3. On this slide, I just show a few of the key drivers that are influencing our sector. These are similar to some of the indicators I just mentioned. We have guiding frameworks that are beginning to be established for green finance and for climate risk. We're establishing frameworks to guide us to a net zero economy. We're seeing an acceleration of investor pressure, and our investors are joining forces through collective action, such as groups like Climate Action 100. And as I mentioned, we're seeing increasing emphasis on metrics and measurement, because the world knows that you manage what you can measure. Slide 4. So it is with awareness of these trends and the belief that we're at an inflection point that Citi this July launched our 2025 Sustainable Progress Strategy. The strategy defines our interest in banking the low carbon inflection by, first of all, financing the low carbon transition, by measuring and reducing climate risk and impact of our client portfolio, and by reducing the environmental impact of our facilities around the world. So to talk for a moment about the key ideas behind each of these 3 pillars, next slide, please. This is a deep dive into the first pillar, our low carbon transition. We met our previous $100 billion environmental finance goal 4 years early in 2019. And so we built upon the track record that we have in environmental finance commitments about what we've learned in terms of accounting for that activity to establish a new 5-year, so condensed time frame, 5-year, $250 billion environmental finance goal to accelerate the transition to a low carbon economy. In order for a transaction to be counted toward the new goal, it must meet one of our green criteria, which you can see on this slide. It's our green taxonomy, if you will. And the criteria include renewable energy, clean technology, green buildings, water quality and conservation, sustainable transportation, energy efficiency, and 2 new criteria, circular economy and sustainable agriculture and land use. The second pillar is on slide 6, focuses on climate risk. We designed a 3-pronged approach to analyzing and reducing climate risk associated with our clients. First, we're continuing to integrate climate risk into our risk policies and updating our sector standards, such as the fossil fuel policy updates that we made in April of this year. We're stepping up our use of climate scenario analysis to analyze our portfolio, and we're using emerging methodologies to measure greenhouse gas emissions associated with our loan books. And we're also evaluating decarbonization pathways. And finally, we're engaging with our clients on their risk management and transition strategies, and we're using what we've learned from this analysis to help to engage with our clients and help them transition. Slide 7. Our third pillar is really about what we're doing at home, where it all starts, sustainable operations. Since 2001, we've been working to measure, to manage, to reduce the direct environmental impacts of our operations by tracking our energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, water use, and green building initiatives. For our 2025 operational footprint goals, which you can see on this slide, we moved our baseline from 2005 to 2010 to align with the climate science, and we set a new suite of goals that you can see here. I'll just call out a couple of them. A goal to reduce our location-based, our facilities-related greenhouse gas emissions by 45%, ahead of where climate science tells us we need to be. We've also established, back in 2017, a commitment to procure 100% renewable energy, renewable electricity for our facilities. And we will be meeting that goal, hopefully by the end of this year, through a combination of regional and location-based renewable energy credits, as well as hybrid or synthetic PPAs to purchase renewable electricity from some of the projects that we financed. So I talked earlier about why I think we're at an inflection point. We have a virtuous cycle of investors, of clients, of employees who are encouraging us. They are agitating with us for companies and for Citi to do the right thing. We have a drive for metrics, management, and disclosure, and this will result in a level of transparency, I think, that will help to shape behavior. And we also know that companies have realized this is a central business issue. They can make money by offering sustainable, low-carbon products. And the value at risk for companies that don't effectively manage this inflection point is real. But while I believe that sustainability is a global necessity for our companies, our economies, our families, I do not believe that sustainability is a foregone conclusion. At an inflection point, you can charge forward into a more green, a more equal, a more inclusive future, or we could slide backwards. COVID has shown us how difficult collective action is, and in some countries like the United States, we do not have yet the public policy guardrails, such as the price on carbon, to really facilitate the low carbon transition. We are seeing examples of the kind of leadership that we think we need, and I think it's helpful to just reflect on those examples and be inspired by them. The kind of leadership we have, for example, in the Nordics, where government leaders have made a pledge to be the most sustainable region in the world by 2030, where Sweden, Denmark, and Finland are some of the highest ranking countries on SDG achievement. This is a region of very innovative companies and countries, and I think that the cultural emphasis that is present on sustainability has really resulted in some of the innovation that we're talking about at this event. So to close, I want to acknowledge that our job now is to learn from these acts of leadership, whether it's at the country level, the company level, the individual level, to move past the inflection point and to leverage the technology and innovation and financial tools to drive forward this momentum and innovation. Thank you very much for the time. I'm happy to take any questions.
Hi, Val. That was fantastic. It's super interesting. I'm thinking when it comes to questions, what could other regions do? What should they do to sort of address this, and how can they sort of follow suit in the wake of some of these regions that might be a bit ahead? Do you have any general tips?
Well, I try to think about structural solutions to really help drive this kind of innovation forward at a macro scale. I think, first of all, the public policy solutions are essential, not necessarily to command control the kind of innovation that needs to happen, but to set the guardrails in place for that then allows innovation and sustainable innovation to really thrive. So, I would say for many countries around the world where we're still learning, that you need this perfect storm of good public policy that sets the guardrails, including a price on carbon. You need also, I think, support for innovation and emerging technologies to really give them a level playing field to compete. And I think that, reflecting on the sustainability culture that I think is present in many of the Nordic countries and many other countries around the world as well, that infusing that sustainability culture across our populations, across the next generations, which I think are already demonstrating leadership on this, I think that is sort of essential to driving some of these other macro changes. And forums like this that bring together this interesting convergence of technology and financial solutions and entrepreneurs, I think are also important for showcasing what's popular or what's possible.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to hear from you and to have you here today. So thanks for today. I know it's early morning, so enjoy your day. And thank you from us in Copenhagen.
Thank you very much for having me.